Our second topic, the Lions-Jaguars game. This one felt to me like Alabama against an FCS school. And maybe that sounds a little flippant that I'm saying it that way, but I mean, you look at the disparity between the two teams and the score 52-6. That was not a fluke. The disparity in yardage was 475. That is the largest disparity in yardage in an NFL game since 1979. I was born in 1980. So, and I'm not young. So, this is the largest disparity in yardage of my lifetime. And the disparity in first downs was 38-10. The Lions were 60% on third down. So that's great and all. They were only 6 of 10 on third down, which means in compiling 38 first downs, think about this now. In compiling 38 first downs, they only got into third down 10 times. That is just mind blowing to wrap your head around, like all of the difference between the two teams. So we can start with the Lions here. My producer, Kent Brown, actually gave me this fact, which I did not know. The Lions, for the first time in their history, are the betting odds favorite to win the Super Bowl, as they should be. I felt like over the last few weeks, we've had to give the Chiefs their respect as the two-time defending champions that are undefeated. But the bottom line is, for the last month and a half, the Lions are playing better than anyone in the NFL. And I think there's a consistency to it that is just very, very impressive. They are a jackhammer every week. It's the same thing. So they wear you out. They can beat you a million different ways. They're efficient in every way. They have so many different levers they can pull. This happens without Aiden Hutchinson, who you could argue, through the first month of the season might have been their best player. The depth, the balance, all of it is, again, just incredible. And, one thing that sticks out to me, I like to watch the locker room videos after. I always think you can find out a little something about every team by going and watching the victory speeches from the coaches, which go up online. And Dan Campbell, like a lot of other coaches, will give it to one of his players at the end to break it down and say a little something to the team. And one thing that I think should not go unnoticed, that I think is really, really consistent when you watch those videos with the Lions, is how every player who gets up there says, "I love this team." And I think there's something significant to that in the way that that group has been banded together by Dan Campbell. And yes, they're talented. Yes, they're balanced. Again, yes, they can beat you a million different ways. But there's a culture there that I think there's a reason why this is so consistent, right? There's a reason why this keeps happening this way. There's a reason why they don't seem to have very many hiccups. And I think, as corny as it might sound, it's because those guys are playing for each other. And again, like that line that you hear from every player who stands up there, "I love this team," is significant, at least as I see it, in them being who they are. Now, of course, 52-6, 38-10 in first downs, the 475-yard disparity in total offense. That didn't happen in a vacuum. There's somebody else who's complicit here, and that's the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't think everybody there is out of the woods. They're in their bye week. They didn't fire Doug Peterson or Trent Baalke on the first day of their bye week. We'll see what happens. This feels like a fait accompli. And that Doug Peterson is going to be out of a job at the end of the year, whether it happens today, tomorrow, or in the middle of January. That 100% feels like it's coming. But I think that this needs to be more than just that. And I hate calling for people's jobs, but I mean, if you look at where Trent Baalke is as their general manager, I don't know how. And I've heard the rumblings like everybody else, like they could hang on to him, like that ownership thinks he's done a good job building the roster. This thing has gotten so toxic that I don't think that you can continue with the way it's been, especially when you factor in Balky's history, how he drove Jim Harbaugh out of San Francisco, how he did it to promote his guy, Jim Tomsula, who wound up being one of the worst hires we've seen in the last 20 or 30 years in the NFL. One and done with Tomsula, one and done with Chip Kelly. Then Trent Baalke gets fired. He winds up in Jacksonville, where he's Dave Caldwell's top lieutenant. Dave Caldwell and Doug Marrone get fired coming out of the 2020 season. Trent Baalke somehow gets promoted as they are pursuing Urban Meyer to be their head coach. He survives the Urban Meyer debacle, gets paired with Doug Peterson, and now there's acrimony between Baalke and Peterson's staff, and that's been out there for over a year now that, Balky wanted to force changes after last year. They did make some changes. There were changes on the offensive staff that Balky was trying to push that Peterson resisted against, and it's just made for not great feel in that building, not great culture in that building. And I think you're seeing that in the way they're going through the motions now on the field. So that organization needs blown up, and that organization needs a completely fresh start where they're not carrying over one person and letting go of another person. And really, if you look at it, Shad Khan hasn't done this since going back to David Caldwell and Gus Bradley coming in there in 2013. There was a half measure in firing Gus and promoting Doug Marrone and making Doug Marrone the head coach. Marrone and Caldwell are paired. You fire both those guys, but then you promote Caldwell's top assistant Balky to be the general manager. You fire Urban Meyer, who you paired with Balky, but you keep but you keep Balky in 2022. You pair him with Doug Peterson. They have not had a full reset in over a decade. And this is an organization that's made the playoffs once over that course, over that period of time. So it is, or twice. I'm sorry, twice. They've made the playoffs twice over that period of time. It is time to blow the whole thing up in Jacksonville on Sunday. Sunday's game in Detroit certainly showed that.